Welcome to Twin City Talk. Today we are talking with Austin Highsmith, who is an actress. You might recognize her from the Dolphin Tale movies, but she's also from Winston-Salem and has a great story she's going to share soon about her childhood here, and she wrote a book about it. Hi, Austin.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Thanks for joining.
Hey, Austin.
So,
hello.
I'd love for you to go ahead and start sharing your story about, that inspired this book you wrote based in Winston-Salem.
Of course. So I was born and raised in Winston-Salem. I loved my time there and am still very passionate about North Carolina and Winston-Salem. And actually, one of our biggest family traditions takes place in Winston-Salem, North Carolina. And that's what inspired my book, The Miracle Tree, which is about an illness that I had as a 2-year-old that almost killed me. I was given a 50-50 chance of living through the night. And this was at Christmas in 1983. Yes, I'm old. And I woke up from my nap at my babysitter's, and my left eye was swollen shut and purple, and it was like I had a softball on the side of my little 2-year-old head. And so my mom took me to the pediatrician, and they were like, "Please don't stop here. She could die. Go straight to the ER." And my mom's like, "I'm so sorry. What?" And so she rushed me to Baptist Hospital, which is now, I think, named something different. But she rushed me to the hospital, and they immediately started doing MRIs and CAT scans and all that kind of stuff, and confirmed that I did, in fact, have post-orbital and peri-orbital cellulitis, which is an illness that kids can just catch like the flu. And my case was very aggressive and very severe, and it required an emergency surgery. Dr. Jim Thompson was my doctor, and I still am in touch with him today. And this was right at Christmas. And so my dad went down to the Christmas tree in the children's ward and prayed and said, "God, if you save my daughter's life this Christmas, I promise I will return with my family every Christmas to say thank you." And my dad has never missed a year in 41 years. That's amazing. So that's what inspired my book.
Yeah, you came back and did a reading at Bookmarks, right, when it first came out?
Yes, I did. I did when I was on my book tour, which got cut short by COVID. It was apparently like the worst time in the history of ever to have a book be released. So that's fun. But yes, I did a book tour in Winston and Raleigh and Charlotte and Cary and all kinds of places around North Carolina, promoting the book. It was a very, very meaningful thing to be at. I also went to Baptist and read it to a couple of kids there. So that was a very, very meaningful part of this journey, was to kind of bring it full circle. And what originally made me get the idea for the book is you mentioned Dolphin Tale. I used to be a spokesperson for the aquarium down there, and we would do hospital visits. And I, on one of those hospital visits, met a little girl, and it was like looking at my baby pictures. And I asked her mom, I said, "Oh, does she have post-orbital or peri-orbital cellulitis?" And the mom is like, "Are you a doctor?" And I'm like, "No, I just had it. You can see my scar." Yeah. I've actually never played a doctor. I've always wanted to. But the mom like burst into tears, and she was like, "You didn't die. Your face isn't deformed. You're not blind." And I'm like, "Nope, I'm totally fine. And I suspect your daughter will be too." And my coworkers, after we left that room, were like, "What was that? Because what just happened there?" And I'm like, "Oh, it's no big deal. I almost died." And blah, blah, blah. And they're like, "What?" And because of that, I started to sort of share my story more in the talkbacks that we had at the aquarium. And people just really responded to it. So I got the idea to write a book. And I originally wrote it as a gift to my dad on Father's Day, which of course he just sobbed. I don't know if you guys know my dad, but he is a very emotional man.
He is.
And so, yeah, he really is.
In a wonderful way.
So, and just the most, he just loves his kids. He just loves so fully. So he got his lungs x-rayed at one point, and they're like 2.5 times the normal size. And I think if they were to ever look at his heart, it would be like 10 times the normal size because of just how much love that man has. But because of that, I was inspired to share my story in a broader version. And actually one of the writers of Dolphin Tale, Noam Dromi, and we just adapted it into a children's family film. So we've just completed the screenplay.
Congrats. That's great.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, we're pretty excited. So we'll see where it goes.
So even though you're not in Winston now, I know it's special to you. So what do you love about Winston?
Oh gosh, so many things. Obviously Krispy Kreme donuts. That's our pride and joy, right? Like I always, tell people, I'm like, we brought that to you, so you're welcome. Most of it seems to revolve around food for me, which is a unfortunate.
Yeah.
Not if you want to fit into your pants, I found, but that's okay. So much about it. I love visiting my old high school, RJ Reynolds. I love Three-Way Shopping Center. I love, Suzy, you put me on the spot, and now I'm like,
I like to do that.
What happens in North Carolina? What is happening there? No, I just love visiting Renolda Gardens. I love going all around. I'm seriously blanking on everything that I love. Oh my gosh, the Moravian sugar cake. Again, food. Dewey's, yes. And just so many things about Winston. I'm going through my head, and it's all kind of centered around Thruway right now in my memories. But Haynes Mall, the Village Tavern. My friend from high school, Susan Richardson, her dad Scott Richardson owns Village Tavern, and that's one of our absolute musts every single time I'm in town is to go to one of the Village Taverns. Just there's no place quite like North Carolina for hospitality and friendliness, and it's genuine. People really want to help you, and they really want to, make sure that you're having a good day. And it's just the sense of community there is something that I will always hold on to.
So what are some things you're working on now?
Oh goodness. I have several screenplays that are out. I've written a couple of pilots. I've written just a lot of features. I've got them out. One is super secret. I wish I could talk about it, but I've not shored up all of the walls of legality around it quite yet. But the Miracle Tree script is something that we're really excited about and hoping that it finds a home with a production company sometime soon. I've got a lot of Christmas movies that are sort of Hallmark style. I've got some thrillers. I just write in every genre because since I came from acting first, it's kind of just I'm used to telling stories that are not, specific to one genre. So I've got a sci-fi pilot. I've got 2 comedy pilots. I'm getting ready to write an action pilot. Just doing a lot of writing right now because I don't know if you guys have heard. Hollywood is in a little bit of a mess right now. The motto the motto is survive till 2025, and I've not been able to get an answer from anybody about what happens in 2025 that we're surviving until. Yeah. But we're just all surviving until 25 is what the goal is. I guess.
I'm afraid that's going to change to make it to 26 and crawl to 27.
Yeah.
So Austin, when you are writing your treatments, do you find it hard to not precast your roles?
Oh, actually, I don't ever do that really, because I just sort of try to get into the headspace of whatever that character is experiencing. So it's coming more from my imagination than it is from imagining any character in it. Mm-hmm. I don't know that I would find that freeing. I think that I would find that limiting if I was trying to write towards a certain person, which is maybe why I've never done it. And then I keep getting, because I have to make like, those awful lookbook pitch deck things,
Yes.
which is like the bane of my existence. I'm like, this is for directors. This is not for writers. And they're always like, make sure that you cast the roles. And I'm like, I don't want to do that. But I always follow the rules because I love rules. But I find it hard. I mean, my husband hates rules, and he's never met a rule that he's willing to follow. I've never met a rule that I'm not like, we have to do this. So it makes for a really fun adventure, especially driving. I'm like, you can't do that. And he's like, yes, I can. See, watch. And I'm like, ah.
I like your husband already.
He has a bad case of doesn't apply to me.
Yeah. But my favorite story about rules with driving has to be my grandmother and her good friend, Bessie. So she was I think she was like in her 80s when she did this, but she was like, I don't know why it says no U-turn here. I've never had one problem making one at all. And I'm like, well, it's not saying that you cannot physically do it. You're not supposed to do it.
It's all just a recommendation.
Yeah, it's all suggestions.
Probably not a good idea to U-turn here. Bessie's, I don't know. That doesn't make any sense at all to me.
Bessie's like, well, I can do it. See?
Well, or whoever's in the passenger side. Well, I'm the one that has to worry about it.
Oncoming traffic.
Yeah, exactly. Because I'm going to give you.
Yeah.
Exactly. My husband will drive like the wrong way down one-way streets and just be like, it's fine. I'm like, it's literally not fine. Like there are like giant multi-ton vehicles speeding it right at our faces, but okay.
He's like, yeah, but the little alleyway
yeah.
I was headed for is right there. I mean, it's only 50 feet. I'd have to go all the way around the block. They find it the other way, and who wants to do that?
Exactly.
Yeah.
He's a New Yorker, so like he didn't learn to drive until much later in his life, and so that's what makes it an adventure every single time we're behind the wheel.
So you're like, I'll drive.
Always. I drive all the way, always.
So when you bring him to Winston, what does he think about here?
Well, my dad is more of a fan of my husband than he is of me. So he just follows him around. So I don't know that Teddy gets to experience much except for the food, because it's also my dad's excuse to eat all of the junk food. So he's like, hey, Teddy, you want to go to Bojangles? Hey, Teddy. So Teddy just goes and like eats with my dad. It's like a food tour of Winston every single time he's at home. But he's also very like curious about all of the trees and the nature, because it's something that he just has never experienced in his life. And the first time he ever heard a cicada, he was like convinced that it was the size of like a, pterodactyl. And I was like, nope, it's about the size of your thumb, babe. It's going to be okay. So yeah, he's very alarmed by the sounds of nature. And the first time he ever saw a baby dragonfly, it freaked him out. He's just not used to it at all. And in fact, we went to the Outer Banks with his family, and his mom is, she was born in the Dominican Republic and then moved to New York when she was like 16 years old. So she's just also very not used to the North Carolina nature. And we were getting off of a little pontoon boat tour, and a frog ribbited, and she said, oh my God, what is that, a donkey? And I fell down, like literally my knees dropped from under me. And I was laughing so hard. I was like, a donkey in the ocean? No. It adds for a lot of humor.
And that's what this life needs, right?
Yes, I'm constantly laughing in my marriage. It's really wonderful. It's the greatest gift.
I have recently adopted the phrase, I'm here for a good time, not for a long time. And so anytime that I can just have a good time, that's going to be, that's the route I'm going to take, whether it's the wrong way, the wrong direction, or if I'm just trying to get to that little alleyway, I'm going to take that route, because that's my suggestion.
Yeah. You and my husband would get along
I might need
swimming.
to adopt that.
Yeah. Absolutely.
So when did you leave Winston-Salem?
Well, right before college, I went to UNC Chapel Hill. excuse me for any Duke fans or Wake fans out there, but I did go to Chapel Hill. I am a Tar Heel. And then right after college, I just packed up my little Honda Accord and drove west on 40. So that was in 2003. Again, I'm an old lady. And so I've been here a little over 21 years.
It's right around when
So it's home now.
I remember that.
Oh,
packing
really?
up. Oh, yeah. I remember that packing up drive really well. It was, I beat you to it by a few years, but yeah, that's an event, isn't it? Packing up your car and going, okay,
it is.
I'm doing this for 3 days straight.
Well, and it was also like
heading that way.
Really, it was before like kids nowadays like don't understand. Like this was before like cell phones were really a thing. Like we were still in like roaming and like, peak time and like all these kind of like random charges. So you couldn't just call anybody, and like you had to stop at payphones with like a calling card and all that kind of stuff.
Here's one for you. How about I drop a Thomas lap? How about I drop a Thomas guide in your lap? How about that? Do you remember that?
Listen, guide? Are you kidding? I had one for forever, and I looked the other day and I can't find it, and I'm like, there's no way that my little like Type A self threw this away. Like it has to be somewhere.
Are you guys
in my storage?
Awesome. I'm looking. Sorry, we're the lag time has over top of each other. So I'm looking at these guys asking about the Thomas guide. So this thing was a phone book sized map that every LAN had in their shotgun seat. And because you didn't have GPS and you could just open up your phone.
No.
You talk about unsafe. Everybody talks about the cell phones. Imagine having a phone book map and it was all color coordinated and you'd have to find it by zone and, you'd get your audition or, your meeting wherever you had to be. And it was a 10-minute ordeal to map that out before you left. And then you had to add, the 2 hours of drive time to actually get to where you were going. So yes, Thomas Guide days. I'm glad that you're a survivor.
I'm such a nerd that I actually, before I moved here, I flew out for a couple of days and stayed at like a Ramada Inn near the airport, and then would like get my Thomas Guide and study it. Because that's a thing, and then like drive around
at all.
No, that's what I did. That was my approach to my Thomas Guide, and that's why I'm like, I have to still have that somewhere in my car. There's no way I got rid of it.
That's pretty genius.
I was talking about that with my husband the other day. But so when did you move back to North Carolina?
Yeah, so permanently, it was probably about 6 years ago, something like that. But prior to that, I was permanently there for around 10 to 12 years, and then we kept our place, and we're going back and forth. And then the last show I was on, I did a couple of years back and forth, and so I was making that commute a lot, which I don't recommend at all because it was a daily thing for 2 years. But yeah, so cumulatively it was around 15, 17 years, including keeping the place and going back and forth. But yeah, somewhere around 6-7 years ago, maybe a little bit more than that, it became more of a this is the anchor, this is home, and travel from here. So yeah. Which makes for a lot of traveling, and it's not always very easy. But yeah, I've got a lot, family and so forth, and Winston's pretty great. So
yeah. I always love coming back. I mean, I do absolutely love LA though, and I've got a theater here that I'm a part of, and
very cool.
I teach there. I teach acting at that school that's affiliated with the theater. So it's this is definitely home. The Ruskin Group Theater. It's in Santa Monica.
Okay. I lived in Santa Monica. Yeah, very cool. Where
by the airport.
Monica? All right. Okay. Yeah.
The Santa Monica Airport. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah. I met my husband backstage there, actually.
Did you?
We had like a meet cute backstage. Yeah.
Very nice. Did you train out there?
Yes. Yeah. I took one acting class my senior year in college, and then did 3 plays at UNC my senior year, and then moved out here and found the Ruskin School about 3 months after I got here. And then I've been a part of that in some way ever since. So over 20 years.
That's great.
21 years. Yeah.
That's very cool.
Yeah. We love it.
Yeah. No. Are you in Santa Monica?
We're in Playa del Rey. So we're very close. Yeah.
You get to
We're
be
right
sort
next
of
to the ocean. It's
in
pretty great.
LA, not LA, which is amazing,
Exactly.
honestly.
Exactly. It's a wonderful little like walkable community. And I mean, of course, because everybody loves my husband, like nobody acknowledges that I'm alive when I'm with him.
We should
But,
have that in
like,
common as well,
there's
by
a-
the way. My wife is in the room. It's all like, oh, your wife's amazing. Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
I'll be in the corner.
I mean, literally, like in our elevator, like a couple of months ago, I'm like riding down in the elevator with this older man, and he was like, "You look familiar," and I was like, "I mean, I'm your neighbor." He was like, "Nope, that's not it." And I'm like, "Okay." And then I was like, "Well, I am married to Teddy," and he's like, "Oh, that's what it is." I'm like,
Yeah.
I live here too. I'm alive. But we have like, this wonderful little like strip mall that we can walk to, and everybody knows my husband's name, obviously. And so they give us deals, and it's like, it's got everything that you could possibly need. We really love it here. We really do.
Yeah, Blythe's great. Yeah, really cool,
Yeah.
tight little community. Yeah.
Yeah.
And not
Absolutely.
that far from being able to hop on the boat and head over to Catalina either.
Yeah. And also like LAX is I mean,
Super
when we
close.
have people fly in, where I'm just like, just text me when you're at baggage claim. Cause
Yep.
that's how long it's going to take me to get to you.
Yes.
It's really quick and easy. Yeah.
Very nice.
It disappoints the Uber drivers because they don't make a lot of money, but that's all right.
So when you come back to Winston, is there any place that you really always have to visit besides food related stuff?
I mean, really, Renolda Village. I love the gardens. When my grandfather passed away, my dad went and ran the Renolda Garden like loop. I forget how many miles it is, but so it's always like a grounding place for us. My grandmother also, before she passed away, she lived in a facility not far away from Renolda. So it's just always had a really special place in my heart. Especially because I was an art major at UNC. I love going to see all of the art that they have there. And I'm just kind of a geek about art history in that way. I like to go back to sort of the Buena Vista area where Reynolds is and visit that as well. My little brother coached there for a while, basketball, and my dad still coaches tennis there. And so it's always really nice to kind of go back to that area as well. Our old church and all kinds of stuff. My parents actually recently moved to Moxville, which is nearby. And it's a tiny little town. But yeah, I love going just to kind of visit where I used to spend all of my time, around that area.
Do you feel like it's
and
changed
visit
a lot
friends there and stuff.
when you every time you visit?
A ton. Yeah. I'm like, well, that wasn't there. What is that? And Reynolds, especially because they, it just got so big. And so they ended up adding like a bunch of trailers where we used to have pep rallies in the Horseshoe. I think that there's actual like structures there now for classes. And so it has changed a great deal. But I just love it. There's just nothing like that Southern charm that Winston has to offer.
All right. So how can people find out more about this book and screenplay?
I will post about it probably ad nauseum on my social media. And my handle is IamOyster_Austin H. Garces. Because so I'll tell the story about I Am Oyster really quickly. When I was, trying to start my acting career, I waited tables like a lot of other people, but I also did that in North Carolina. And I was commonly, especially when I moved to LA, the only person from the States at the restaurant where I worked. And so the aw sound doesn't really occur in that many languages besides English. So people had a really hard time saying Austin. So they'd be like, Austin. And I'm like, you know what? Just call me Maria. There's a Maria in every language. It's easy. I'll go by it. It's fine. So I went by Maria for like 11 years. And then in the last restaurant I ever worked in, the head chef refused to call me Maria because he wanted to call me by my real name. So he called me Justin. And so one of the other chefs was like, hey, Maria, is Maria not your name? And I was like, no, it's not. And he goes, is it oyster? And I was like, it is. So then I became Oyster. So that's why my Instagram handle and threads and all that kind of stuff is I am Oyster. That's where that comes from.
I always wondered that.
Yeah. Well, now you know. It's because I was refused to be called Maria, and they wanted to call me Justin instead. So that's it.
That is great.
That is great. Awesome. Well, thank you for joining us today.
Oyster, so good
Thank
to talk
you so much.
Yes.
Likewise. Nice to finally meet you. I've heard about you for years.
Well, likewise, especially talking with your dad. Yeah. Every time I drop off Harper for tennis, he'd say, well, so let's talk about Austin. Like, you got it. Let's do it. So it was a lot of good
You mean
conversation
Oyster?
about you.
My apologies.
No, it's always a pleasure.
My
I loved
apologies.
listening. No, he was beaming every time. It was great.
He's the best dad. He's a very proud daddy.
Yes, he is.
I love that man.
Yeah. Great dude.
Yeah. Thank you guys so much for having me.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for joining us. This is Twin City Talk. You can find us on Instagram and Facebook. The views and opinions portrayed by guests on this podcast are not necessarily those of the distributors and hosting companies. And if you love this podcast, that's great, but don't think about stealing it. Reach out to us and talk about the content because it is copyrighted.